Okay, this is the Chapter 1 Introduction to Public Speaking lecture. A lot of people always want to know why I have to take a speech course. Well, you have to take a speech course because in everything you do, you will be presenting yourself an idea, a belief, a concept to an audience, to a receiver. If you go back to the videos that serve as a supplement to this week, you will see the models talk about the different components of the communication process. And one of the things that is mentioned in the video is you cannot not communicate. I know that's a double negative. Let me say that again. You cannot not communicate. And what that means is simply that in everything we do, we are communicating. Even if we're saying nothing at all, we are communicating that we want you to leave us alone, that we want no part of something, or we're disinterested, or we're simply choosing to remain silent over something. Whatever the person's intent is, they're choosing not to share that, and that in and of itself is communicating that message. So because we live in a world where we cannot not communicate, the benefits of this course are many. You will use the tricks and skills and concepts from this course in preparing you for future courses, for jobs, for your careers, even if it's just for the interview process itself. This course will prepare you and better familiarize yourself with the speaking in public concept. You will learn one-on-one communication skills. I mentioned the job interview. This is perhaps the most obvious place where one-on-one communication will occur at the professional level. Now, it's also going to occur at a more intimate or personal level, or interpersonal communication as it's referred to. Hopefully you will take away things from this course that will help you in any one-on-one communication process. I've already mentioned the skills that will help you in the job market and in your career. Those are obvious. You're gonna hopefully come away with the skill set needed to be better in that particular environment. I'm always asked the question by students, what can I do to be a better public speaker? Well, we're hopefully going to answer that, but in a nutshell, what you can do to become a better speaker is always familiarize yourself as best you can with those 7 elements of communication in the transactional communication model. If you can better understand each and every one of those elements, including yourself, and perhaps most importantly yourself, then you will become a better speaker. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when you look at the communication process that is taking place, the sender, the receiver, if you place yourself as the speaker or the sender in that particular model, knowing who the audience is, what the environment or the situation is, knowing what the message is, you have to know your content. Knowing what feedback or anticipating what feedback you might get will help you prepare and be a better speaker. Knowing what kind of noise or distractions might be involved in that particular model will help you better prepare. So simply understanding as many of those elements in the communication process as you can will make you a better public speaker. It will also give you the experience and self-confidence that you have to thrive in a public speaking environment. And most importantly, it will help you in making contributions, not just to yourself, but to others as well. I'm sure that at some point, somebody will call upon you to, even at a very informal level, present or speak publicly. And hopefully this course will prepare you to step in and make those contributions to any situation. Now, you've watched a video about the communication process, but I'm going to go into that a little bit more here in the lecture. The communication process always has a speaker, the person or the source from which the message is coming. There is always a listener, the person or the source that is receiving the communication. And then there's the communication itself, the message itself, what is being delivered from the speaker to the listener. All of this always takes place in a channel. A channel can be anything that is used to help carry the message. Right now, as you listen to this lecture, the channel is my voice to your ears through the computer speakers that you have, or headphones that you have plugged into your computer. There's always feedback involved in every communication process. Feedback is simply the message that is being sent back to the source or the sender in the communication process. The feedback can often be nonverbal. It does not always have to be something that is said. It can simply be a gesture or a nod. Think about any class that you've sat in and the communication model taking place there. You have the instructor speaking to the class. The class is listening, hopefully, intently to what is being said. In that particular situation, the feedback is usually facial expressions. It is usually your posture, the way you are sitting in the chair at the desk, the way you're taking notes or not taking notes. All of those things provide communication back to the source, also known as feedback. And then there's interference. Interference is an interesting component of the communication process because it presents a challenge and can lead to the most disruptions or the break in communication. Remember what's been said many times already. You cannot not communicate. You're always communicating. So when you are interacting with someone, you must overcome the interference for that communication process to be going. Interference can come in the form of noise, and it can come in the form of physical distractions and mental distractions, and I'm going to get more into that, those types of interferences in the next lecture. But it's important that you understand that interference has the greatest opportunity to break the communication transactional process. And there's a situation. There's always an environment or a situation in which the communication process is taking place. In this particular situation, you are taking the course at the college, and it's in a classroom or it's online, and you're learning about speech or whichever courses you may be enrolled in. That creates the situation for which the communication process is occurring. The communication process can be a job interview, or the communication situation can be a job interview. It can be a public presentation or a speech given by a politician, a mayor, a city councilman. All of those things have their own situation. And that is an important element of the communication process. You want to understand what the situation is before you go in and give a speech. So Comes back to this model here, which is the transactional communication model, in which there is a speaker and a receiver or listener. And you can see by this model that the message is being sent through a channel to the receiver, who then provides feedback, the underlying arrow there, the blue arrow at the bottom, all of which is taking place through channels with interference. Let's talk about the speaker's responsibilities. The speaker's responsibilities are many, but one of the things that a speaker must always strive to achieve are high ethical standards, which means never distort information, never alter information to make your point. Keep it factual and keep it honest. That's the best way to keep and maintain your credibility with a listener or an audience. In addition, you must always respect your audience. If you do not have any respect for your audience, who they are, what their interference might be, what the situation is, you're going to have a hard time conveying your message to that particular audience. You must know them as best you can, who they are, and what their interests are. I'm often reminded of a time in a speech course that I taught previously where a speaker got up to give a speech on how to change the carburetor in his car. And he delivered the speech. He obviously knew his subject. He obviously knew the content very well. He knew the situation was the speech course, but he did not know his audience. His audience were a bunch of females, after which we polled to find out how many of them were into mechanics or knew anything about mechanics, to which none of them responded positively. His entire audience had no interest, no experience, and couldn't care less about changing the carburetor in a car. So this person's speech fell completely on deaf ears. So you don't want to do that. You want to be able to give your speech to an audience who has a vested interest in what you're saying. That's why it's extremely important to know and respect your audience. To do that, some of the things you have to do is you have to be aware of stereotyping and scapegoating. You have to know what these mean, and you have to not only be aware of what they are, but you have to be able to overcome them. A stereotype is an exaggerated or oversimplified image of a group of people. For example, some people think that somebody with heavily tattooed arms or legs, for example, represent individuals who are prone to criminal behavior. That's a stereotype. I'm sure we all know people with tattoos, and I'm sure they're not all prone to criminal behavior. Scapegoating occurs when an individual or group is blamed for some real or imagined wrong. In Adolf Hitler's Germany, Jewish people were blamed for the economic hardships and other problems that led to the beliefs of the Nazi Party. These individuals were obviously not to blame, but were the scapegoats in World War II. Another thing the speaker must do is enrich the listeners' lives. Instead of dreading a speech, you should welcome public speaking as an opportunity to make contributions to the campus, to the community, to yourself, to wherever it is that you are contributing. A speech can bring interesting information and valuable viewpoints to your listeners' lives. You should always take every speech seriously. No matter how small the audience, in this case it may be very small, there may be an opportunity to where you're giving your speech to this class and there may only be 1 or 2 people present. You must be aware of that, and you must treat that audience just the same as you would an audience of 300 or 400. So be respectful of the audience and take it seriously no matter what the audience's size is. Let's look at an overview of the basics of public speaking. All of these guidelines are covered throughout the entire book, and we're going to be getting those in greater detail later. They're discussed here in a case you need to give the speech before you have to chance to study the rest of the book. So I'm just kind of giving you an overview. Here are some preparation steps that we're going to need to do. The audience, adapt your ideas, language, and delivery to the needs, interests, and desires of your audience. I just gave the example of a person changing a carburetor. Make the speech interesting and appealing to all listeners. Again, you shouldn't give a speech about carburetors to a bunch of people who are not interested in carburetors. How do you do that? How do you know what a group or an audience is potentially interested in? Well, there's a number of things you can do, and we will get into that even more later in the semester. But some of the things you can do are talk to your audience members, interview your audience members, take polls or surveys of your audience members. All of those things will help you better understand who your audience is so that you can prepare your better speech. The topic. When you choose a topic, make sure it's appropriate for this audience. Narrow it to fit comfortably in the time allocated. Your speeches will all be timed, so it's important that you not go over and you not go too broad. The more specific a topic is, the better your speech will be. Have purposes and a central idea. I'll get more into this with the outlining section of this course. But you want to choose a general purpose such as to inform or persuade. Keep in mind that the reasons that we engage in public speaking are usually to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. These are the 3 reasons that we participate in public speaking. So when you come up with a general purpose such as to inform or persuade, you know exactly what you're going to be doing that speech on. And then take that general purpose and transform it into a specific purpose, such as to persuade my audience that backyard trampolines are dangerous. Next thing you'll want to do is create a central idea by asking yourself, what is the key idea that I want my audience to know? For example, you might come up with children should not be allowed to play on backyard trampolines. That would be the central idea. A central idea is kind of like a thesis statement. And again, we'll get more into this with the outline that accompanies your paragraph, your opening paragraph in English. The central idea by itself is not enough. You need to develop it by using supporting materials such as examples, stories, statistics, and testimonies from experts. You can find these materials in books, magazines, the internet, and by interviewing experts in your particular speech topic. Once you do this, you'll want to organize your material by starting with your central idea. Create 2 or 3 main points that explain or illustrate or prove the central idea. For example, if your central idea is backyard trampolines are dangerous, you could create 2 main points. First, trampolines are a major cause of injuries or paralysis. Second, most trampolines lack adequate safety features. Once you do that, you need to create smooth transitions from one part of the speech to another. For example, now that we've looked at the problem, let's discuss the solution. Your speech will have an introduction, and every introduction is designed to grab the attention of your listeners and make them want to listen to the rest of your speech. Prepare them for the body of the speech by stating the central idea or previewing the main points. You want to give any background information or definitions that listeners would need in order to understand what they are about to hear. You'll also want to have a solid conclusion. A good conclusion usually indicates that you're approaching the end of your speech. It's often a strong ending that smoothly wraps up or ties everything together and usually comes back to the central idea. To do all of this, we're going to learn how to put together an outline. All of these parts of the speech that come together, tied up nice and neat in one little package in an outline. Make sure that everything in the outline is very self-explanatory. It illustrates or proves the central idea. Your outline is essentially the blueprint to your speech. We're also going to talk a little bit about speaking notes, preparing brief speaking notes based on your outline. These notes should only be used as cues, not where you write down your speech in some kind of paragraph form. They're just that, they're notes. Notes or cues that you take with you when you're giving your speech just to keep you moving along and on topic. And one of the other things we'll want to do is practice. You'll want to rehearse your speech several times. You don't want to memorize your speech. You want to keep it extemporaneous, not memorized. But strive to rehearse the ideas as cued by your brief speaking notes. You want to trim the speech if you're in danger of exceeding the time limit. One of the most important things that you do is keep your speech within the time. Here are some guidelines for delivering the speech. Self-confidence. Develop a positive attitude about yourself, your speech, and your audience. Don't let fear ruin it for you. Don't get crippled by nervousness. It's normal for most speakers, so don't worry about it. We've all been there. Everyone gets nervous. You're not alone. Rather than trying to banish your jitters, use nervousness as a source of energy. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but you want to capture that and not let it come out in a negative way. You will want to have an approach and a beginning. When you're called to speak, leave your seat without, getting upset or mumbling, or you want to start communicating right away. Remember, you cannot not communicate. So if you get up to speak in front of a group and you're mumbling or you're disgruntled or you're saying under your breath, "Oh, I don't really want to do this," you've already lost credibility and you have already inflicted damage to that communication process. You've already created interference. You want to be sure to speak at a rate that makes it easy for your audience to absorb your ideas. Never too slow, never too fast. You want to be expressive. Your voice should sound as animated as it does when you carry on a conversation with a friend. Pronounce your words distinctly. Speak loud and clear. Don't chew gum. Make sure that everyone can hear you. I am amazed at how many times I have to remind speakers in a speech class to speak up. If it's appropriate, use gestures to accompany your words. Make the gestures natural and graceful. Do it so that they add to rather than distract from your message. You may want to move about during your speech. That's one of the ways that you can dispel some of that nervous energy. But you don't want to make it distracting. If you can move around in a controlled manner without pacing, while maintaining eye contact and maintaining your gestures, then that's perfectly fine. Watch your posture and your poise. Stand up straight. Maintain eye contact. Try to be comfortable, poised, and alert. Don't lean on lecterns. In fact, I not a big fan of lecterns and all, and if we meet in a classroom to give your speech, chances are we will take the lectern away. And most importantly, use your notes. That's why you would have them, to keep you on track. Glance at them occasionally, pick up where you left off and go to the next point, but do not read them. Remember, this is an extemporaneous speech. Be enthusiastic. Enjoy what you're talking about. It's very important that when you pick your topic, that you not only know what you're talking about, but that you enjoy it. It will give you a much better speech. If you just randomly pick a topic that you don't enjoy, it's going to come through. It's going to be apparent in your presentation. When you say your conclusion, pause for a few minutes. Don't say the words "and in conclusion." We'll know when you're done talking by the tone of your voice, by the parts of the outline that you're on. We'll know you're wrapping up when you wrap up. You don't need to say "and in conclusion." If you say "and in conclusion," then chances are you will lose points on your speech.